La 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 la. Boom, boom. La la la.
Not you looking up to the heavens with each keychain.
The higher the key change, the
Closer
to God. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ride Home Podcast. My name is Abby.
Hey guys, it's Caitlin.
We treated ourselves this week to a little at-home movie.
Yes.
To be quite frank with you, I'm not loving the theater choices right now.
No.
There is some stuff coming out towards the end of May and June. There's some like exciting summer movies, obviously.
Sure.
But I feel like the spring is really a goofy time for movies in general. And we have had some really good smaller movies.
Yeah.
I just haven't really been interested in like the blockbusters or like the big ones that people are catching right now.
It's an awkward time for film. It's just that awkward like teenage phase of the year.
Which I have to be honest too, I feel like by this time last year there were way higher quality like mainstream films. Like of course there's always like independent stuff that like what we've been reviewing recently that's always good every year that's being released at random times. But I feel like last year there was a lot of really good early year content. I mean, we released our first episode I believe in May. And we had a lot of movies stashed up and we really enjoyed most of them.
What's going on?
I don't know what's going on. And now we're in a writer's strike. So we're going to have an awkward phase.
Next year and the year after, possibly.
Yep.
Oopsies.
But it's all right. We stand with the writers.
Absolutely.
And they need to get paid. So pay them.
Pay the writers.
Pay the writers, please, for the love of God. So we can have some good movies.
Yes.
So yeah, we decided to watch a streaming movie. We asked for some suggestions from everybody, and we decided to go with Rye Lane, which is currently streaming on Hulu. So if you have a Hulu subscription, it's free, it's good to go. You can watch it.
Unless you have an LG
Smart TV. Because then you're not
the 4K one.
You're not going to be able to watch it.
It won't play on Hulu. You'll just see a green screen.
We could not get it to work, and we searched the 7 C's for an answer, and I found, of course, on Reddit, because that's where all answers actually
answers. Yeah.
On Reddit, they were like, yeah, if you have an LG TV, if you watch a movie on Hulu with Dolby sound, it doesn't work. And I was like, what?
The most random like assortment of items, which we had all of those.
We had the trifecta,
and it was just not working.
But luckily, I recently treated myself to a PS5.
Yes,
so we had a backup. We got it to work on the PS5.
Yes, we did.
Very excited that we did.
Yes,
because it was a very quick, like hour 22 romantic comedy. British. So if you struggle with British accents, subtitles, we immediately put on the subtitles.
Have ADHD,
right?
Subtitles.
If you're over the age of 30, subtitles. So we immediately turn them on because this movie is so short, and because it's a romantic comedy, which most, if not all, romantic comedies, they end up together.
Yes.
There isn't much of a quote unquote spoiler to be had, except for like specific things that happen throughout the movie that are funny or interesting.
Right.
So that being said, breaking it into a spoiler, no spoiler section feels a little odd to us because it's such like a condensed little film that it would be really hard to break it up. So that being said, we will be talking about the movie freely and openly. And so if you don't want any spoilers, you have an hour and 20 minutes to watch it real quick. Yeah. And then come back.
Go check it out.
Yeah.
Come back.
So to kick it off, do you mind reading the synopsis for Rye Lane?
Yeah. As in Dom, two 20-somethings, both reeling from bad breakups, connect over the course of an eventful day in South London, helping each other deal with their nightmare exes and potentially restoring their faith in romance.
This movie is directed by, which this is crazy to me, first-time director Rain Allen Miller, who is a female director, which we love that.
Love to see it.
Love to see it. Also written by two gentlemen, Nathan Byron and Tom Malia, I want to say his last name is. They are not first-time writers, but they're first-time feature writers. They've only worked on British television series as writers before.
Insane.
And it stars David Johnson and Vivian Opara, who, again, have not been in a feature film. So everyone in this film who worked on it, directed it, written it, acted in it, very green, very new, very fresh.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you is, A, what did you think about it? And B, could you tell that it was Baby's first movie? Could you tell that it was
everyone's first time?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, those are good questions. So first of all, I loved this movie, and it is growing on me more and more ever since we've watched it. There's more things that I come to love about it.
And we watched it like yesterday.
Yeah, just watched it yesterday. But it just has grown on me. I loved it like as soon as it ended, but it's like I like it even more now. Secondly, part B of the question, I think parts of it felt a little new. Like it felt a little bit like everyone's, like you could just tell.
Like Baby's first steps a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But overall, not glaringly so.
Right.
And let me say, I think what maybe was the most mature of all were David Johnson and Vivian Opara's performances. They very much did not feel like this was their first feature film.
No.
They're
experts already.
Absolutely ate.
Yeah.
And I think directing also felt pretty mature. I mean, for it being her first movie. In the ways that it felt new, it almost just made it feel more youthful, because it is, to me, I felt like a very youthful film.
Yeah.
And a celebration of young love, and like being kind of in that awkward phase of your life where you're not sure if you're ready to commit to a serious relationship, and just kind of figuring yourself out, and all of those things I felt like really played out very well.
Yeah.
And so I think part of the newness of being like, this is our first movie we've worked on, kind of fit into that a little bit. Like it was kind of like we're figuring ourselves out by making this movie a little bit.
It seemed like it was like a movie made by young people for young people about young people.
And it
absolutely.
And in a way, I think that's kind of what made this feel real and genuine and charming.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also really liked this movie a lot. I was kind of surprised by how much, because I am not a rom-com person.
No, you are not.
I really struggle with rom-coms for a lot of reasons. I feel like I don't really like most of the characters. I actually usually hate most of the characters. If I'm being honest. I usually really struggle with the male interest. I think they're always so lackluster, and yet these women are always just falling all over them in these movies. And there's also I don't know how to explain it, but it almost feels like this materialistic capitalist vibe to most of them, where it's like every single one of them, it's like a writer or a fashion designer, or they live in New York, or they're rich from Alabama. And it just always feels very straight, very white, very upper middle class to extremely wealthy. Yeah. And I think what was really great about this movie was we saw actual youthful people who aren't like 35-year-olds pretending to be 22.
Right.
And people who are fresh faces, so they're not these superstars that we know from every other
rom-com.
Right. It's not Reese Witherspoon.
Right.
Also, it is extremely refreshing to see two black people falling in love, and to not have it be this like tragic story.
Dude, yes.
And I think it was just an extremely refreshing movie to watch as somebody who doesn't like rom-coms. And it certainly followed some like rom-com traditions. Like there is that weird part in the middle where they don't like each other. That happens in like every rom-com where like they break up for a bit, or they find out that someone lied about something, and like that happens in this movie. And there is like a big bold romantic gesture and all of those things. But what's fantastic too is that like some of those tropes from typical rom-coms are kind of turned on their head a little bit, and it's the woman that lied, and it's also the woman that does the big romantic gesture. Like, it felt different, it felt fresh, and it felt real, and it felt like it matches young millennial kind of Gen Z energy, where it's just a very different way of telling a love story. And I was really impressed by it. And I gotta say, like, hats off to some newbie writers and a new director, because they killed it. I thought they did such a good job.
I felt like that too. And I love rom-coms. And we've talked about this. I'm a bit of a rom-com connoisseur. And even though it did follow a lot of the same tropes, I feel like this really stepped outside of the box of what a rom-com is in such a fun and exciting way. And like you said, just to see it be so real and down to earth, and just
down
like,
to earth is a really good way to put it.
This whole movie was down to earth, and the characters were down to earth, and it was just refreshing. Like, I don't know, it was just like two people that you feel like really could exist in the world, and that almost everyone could relate to in some way.
And to top it off, two people with unbelievable chemistry.
Oh my God.
Like, unbelievable chemistry.
Like, they might date in real life or something. I don't know, because this is probably one of the most palpable connections that I've seen in a rom-com, maybe ever.
I'm just gonna give a spoiler and say that I'm not somebody who has like a palpable reaction to rom-coms. I don't cheer, I don't clap, I don't cry, I don't react at all.
I don't really feel like rom-coms make you feel much of anything.
Barely.
Right.
I sometimes laugh at funny parts.
I sometimes laugh.
Usually I don't.
No.
Which, another thing is that this movie is genuinely funny.
Really funny.
In this movie, in the very final scene, after the big romantic gesture, there is a shot of the two of them just looking at each other. And it's this spinning shot around the two of them with this really gorgeous lighting. They both look incredible. They look ethereal.
Yes. They're glowing.
They're glowing. And Vivian has the most beautiful, warm, just deeply and madly in love smile I've ever seen. Like, it looks like she was actually in love with this man.
Yes.
And it felt like I was at like my best friend's wedding.
Yes.
Like, it gave me that same feeling of when you watch like a really good friend get married. I know people complain about weddings. I love them.
Yeah.
And it's for that reason. And watching that, I literally said, "Oh, do you remember that?" I literally I audibly said something. And it was because I felt that. I felt like I was watching two of my friends like falling in love together. Yes. It was amazing.
And meanwhile, I was weeping.
Which is absolutely weeping.
Because
I didn't even know you were crying. And I looked over when like the credits started rolling and you were just covered in tears.
I was just, and I'm crying again because, first of all, like you said, it was an incredibly beautiful shot.
Beautiful.
Just everything about it was amazing, and they looked so beautiful and so happy and so in love.
Yep.
And something about just spinning around with them,
taking in the moment,
just like orbiting them and experiencing it with them was just so beautiful. Yeah. And it felt so real, like you said, like it felt like they're actually in love. Yeah. And so special. Like that was like the most perfect ending to a movie that I've seen in a very long time.
And they didn't give us like the prologue of like, now they're married or they moved in together or whatever. Like, we don't even know if they like stay together.
And it doesn't matter. Because and I think that was also what made it so special, is you know, the way that they filmed that, it was just like, this is all that matters right now. It's just them being in love. And you felt that with them. As a single tear falls down my cheek.
I know, it's so dramatic right now.
You feel that with them. And I just felt like that part of the movie felt like everyone in this whole experience has been here for 100 years on the scene. Because that was just incredible. The stuff of magic. Like, I don't know. That shit just was hit you. Really amazing.
That Capricorn tear is rolling.
That shot really got me.
Yeah. In general, I was fairly impressed with the cinematography. However, I will say, we're going to agree with this. Are you going to
say what I say?
I think so.
Okay.
Let's do a count on the count of 3.
Okay. Is it 2 words?
Yes.
Okay.
What's our major complaint? 1, 2, 3. Fisheye. I don't know why they used it that much.
That was my question of what was the reasoning behind that?
I was almost trying to analyze it like as the movie was going, because I was like, this is such a specific choice to keep using it.
Yeah.
Because they used the fisheye at the beginning, and I just kind of assumed that it was both of them feel a little like awkward or out of place because both of them just went through breakups and the world seems kind of like fuzzy and weird. And I thought it was kind of trying to represent like how they're feeling in the world right now, like kind of like they're in a fishbowl and they're just trapped in what they're going through. But it kept going and it felt very disorienting and lacked a purpose. And there was another cinematography issue that I had where, again, I was trying to analyze it while it was happening, where they put a lot of the negative space behind them. So when they're interacting together, the negative space isn't leading towards the other person. It's leading out into the room that they're in.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
And I thought that was maybe representative of they're still stuck in the past and they're not fully opening themselves up to each other.
Okay.
And there were scenes as they got closer that I thought they were gonna show them in the other way, and I was like kind of waiting for it, but they kept doing it even after they started falling in love.
So it almost feels to me like it was just kind of like stylistic choices. And it wasn't really to like be a part of the storytelling, maybe.
Right. And I felt like I was a little frustrated because I was like, it worked.
Could have been.
Yeah, it worked. But then it was carrying it throughout the movie that really was odd to me. And also what was odd was the actual camera itself for the fisheye scenes was a much lower resolution. It wasn't just a lens change. It was a clear camera change. And so when you're jumping from like a fisheye to a stationary, they're changing quality. Sometimes they had like really quick shots too that felt out of place in the editing. I thought there were some editing choices that felt like they interrupted scenes that could have been more slow and purposeful, and you're diving into the moment with these two characters. And they just kept doing these quick cuts while they were talking. And it wasn't necessary. And it felt like an editor was just like having a field day because it was like my first movie and, you know, having a good time. So I think there was that element of, I mean, I obviously went to film school. I've worked on student films, and there was like a hint of that student film energy where it was
like we were experimenting a lot.
Yeah. However, I will also say that from the limited amount of British television I've seen, like for example, Skins, they do somewhat have that style of editing and that style of cinematography where it is a little quirky and a little different. And so it might be a cultural thing, like it might be a British thing that's their style.
That too.
Especially if all these people worked in British television before.
Sure. Yeah. So that makes sense.
Either they're, you know, fresh and they're trying new things and they're just having fun with it, which like I totally respect that. It just didn't work for me. Yeah. Or they, you know, are just pulling off of styles that they learned from television style editing.
It felt a little bit unrefined. Yeah. You know, like you said, I think it could have been really effective for the storytelling. Like the thing you were saying about the fisheye,
Yep.
I really like that idea about using the fisheye at the beginning. That whole first 10 to 20 minutes,
Yeah.
I think would have worked perfectly,
Mhm.
and then slowly just edge
back
out
on it,
of
yeah.
the fisheye because I think they just leaned a little too hard into it and just kind of were doing it
Yeah.
to do it.
And it got distracting.
Mm-hmm.
It got to the point that it was noticeable and it was a distraction.
Because I can tell you that it did,
Mhm.
because I did not go to film school.
Yeah.
But I did notice that the fisheye thing was happening for a little bit too long, because
Mhm.
do you remember I said to you, what is that called again when
Yeah.
they do the camera like that? And you said fisheye, and I was like, yeah. And I didn't say anything else, but it was just like,
yeah,
in
you
that
didn't say whether you liked it
in
or
that
not.
moment, I was just like, I'm ready for that to be over. Like, I just like, there was just a point where I was just like, I want it to just be a regular camera again.
Yeah. To be quite frank, though, besides those choices,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have very many complaints about this movie.
Okay.
I thought the script was tight and very genuinely funny. It wasn't just cookie cutter rom-com
Mm-hmm.
comedy where there's like a best friend who's a little goofy and like
Yeah.
makes the little jokes, or like a gay
Uh-huh.
best friend that makes the little jokes, or
Yeah.
even sometimes they use like slapstick comedy in rom-coms.
Yeah.
This one was just genuinely funny. Like it was just funny people saying funny things in funny moments at the right time.
Yeah. And the deliveries were great.
The deliveries were perfect and the timing was great. And obviously hats off to the director for pulling all of that together. But I just have to like especially tip my hat to the two leads of this movie. They were so captivating in a way that made me lose all sense of like even like where they were. The title of the movie is literally the place that they're at.
Yes.
And I lost track. Besides the fact that they were British, the world seemed to like disappear around them, and I felt like I was just watching almost two people in like a black box theater.
Yeah.
Like truly, I could have watched these two actors during rehearsal and I probably would have gotten the same thing out of it from watching this movie. I am just so impressed by both of them, and I just hope to God that the right people see this movie and they start getting offers for
Same.
more work, because their talent needs to expand outside of the UK.
Absolutely. Something about them was just infectious.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just the word that comes to mind. Like captivating also, like you said, but it's just like their energy. I know in that final scene, like we talked about, where they were in love, they were glowing, but they were a little bit glowing the entire time.
Yeah.
And David Johnson is possibly one of the most precious human beings that I've ever watched on screen. His performance was so cute and funny and unassuming, and I think that's also what made this so refreshing, is because he wasn't that like beefy, like chauvinistic, like capitalist macho man, like you were saying, like we always see in a typical rom-com,
Right.
and he also wasn't like Ryan Gosling in The Notebook either. Like he was just a very different character as a leading male.
I agree, and I also feel like they've tried in other rom-coms that I've seen to portray this type of person, this type of man before.
They have tried.
They have tried, and I'm going to upset you a tiny bit.
Okay, I'm scared.
But one of the examples of it is Mark Ruffalo in 16 going on 30.
13 going on 30.
Whoops. That's how much I know about rom-coms. He is portrayed as like that nice guy and that kind of introverted, you know, I'm shy. Like you shouldn't be into me. I'm shy.
I'm just like a little nerdy loser guy.
Yeah. And I think what I really loved about Dom's character and about David's performance, he's a good looking guy, don't get me wrong, but he's not what society paints as like the male lead,
like people's sexiest man alive.
Exactly. And I think what was really great was that he wasn't this, I'm just this little guy. I'm a nice guy. Like, why can't I have nice things? Like, why do women always leave me? He knew his worth.
Yes.
And he never questioned, why is this woman into me?
No.
They never made a point of like, he's this dork and she's this cool girl. They even sort of made a point about it because she asks him what he does for a living very early on. And he's like, I'm an accountant. And instead of her being like, Bordeaux,
Right.
I think I forget what her reaction was, but it was something just like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, you totally would be like a good accountant.
Yeah. She was just like, yeah. Like,
yeah, it's
of course
great.
you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just appreciated that about it because it seemed like they weren't trying to give us these portrait people. And we also weren't getting the, like, another example is any rom-com with Adam Sandler, where it's like this like dopey dorky guy that doesn't deserve the girl but gets her anyway.
Also, what I thought was interesting is what they did with her character, because she presented very extroverted, very cool, very fun. Like, she's like out here talking to strangers, like talking them up about their outfits and things. But then later on, we find out that it's a little bit of a facade and a cover, because she actually isn't as confident as she comes across. And there's the scene that I thought was really cute where they do karaoke together, and he, an outwardly introverted person, is like, yeah, let's do karaoke, and she is terrified. And in that moment, you're like, wait a minute, what's she got going on? Like, there's something else going on with her. And I thought that was really cool because it's like, we all can relate to that, or someone who is like that. And, you know, he kind of just steps out of his comfort zone anyways and gets up there and starts singing and rapping and making a fool of himself until she eventually is like, okay, well, this guy can do this. Like, I can go up there with him. And I thought it was just really cool to see them play off of each other in those ways, because it wasn't, like you said, it was not cookie cutter characters. It was not cookie cutter performances. And I think, again, that's what makes this so real and down to earth and special. Because, again, they just felt like real people.
I already know your answer, but what's your popcorn score?
This is like a trough of popcorn. Like, this is a large and a half. Like, it's one of those movies, like I said, that the more I think about it, the more I love it. And I already loved it as soon as it ended. So it's just like, I already can't wait to watch it again. Like, it's just so special, captivating, infectious, really witty and sharp, which of course it is because it's British humor.
Love British humor,
which
so
is just
much
better in every way. Like, I don't know. I think it's just, it did all the right things. And I think the fact that our only criticism of it was that they used fisheye for too long and that they could have edited it a little bit better. Really speaks volumes about what kind of movie this is. It was just like this perfect little short story of a day in the life of two people who fall in love. So it's a large for me. Just back to the popcorn. Sorry, I got a little carried away.
I know.
Large popcorn.
I am also going to give this a large. To be completely honest with you, the rest of the movie could have sucked, and I would have given it a large anyway, just for that last shot.
Dude, same.
That last shot was just something very incredibly special. I truly loved and enjoyed this movie. And I have to say, all I wanted after watching this movie was a big fat burrito.
I knew you were going to say that. I already knew what you were going to say before you said it.
I was like, they're really going to eat 2 burritos in front of me, and I needed a burrito.
And it looked really good. Wait, the burritos that they bought from Colin Firth. And the burrito stand was called Love Guac. How did we forget to talk about this? Oh my God. They went to a burrito stand on Rye Lane, which was this like little indoor market thing. And they're like buying these burritos, and we did not recognize it right away. But the person that they bought burritos from was literally Colin Firth. wearing a t-shirt that said Love Guac. How are you supposed to say that? Guac or guactually? Because it's Love
Guac.
Actually, but it's guacamole.
Guacamole. So
Love
guac.
Actually.
Guac chili.
Guactually. I feel like
Guac-
it's like somewhere in the middle.
Not you shimmying your shoulder. Guac.
Well, how you're
chili.
saying it, I feel like I'm supposed
Guactually.
to. Love guactually.
Love guac chili.
Love guactually.
Well, that does it for us this week.
Mm-hmm.
So happy we watched this movie.
Yes.
Just so happy.
What a fun time.
And we like popped a little popcorn and ate little candies on the couch.
Yeah.
Man, like I love the theater, don't get me wrong, but when we watch a movie at home, there's just something like special about
That's such
it.
an underrated activity.
I know.
I have to say.
Which is funny because I feel like most people, they do the opposite. Like they mostly watch movies at home
Right.
and like occasionally go to the theater.
Mhm.
But
Like,
you
we
know,
live at the theater.
if you
so
get a Regal Unlimited pass, one day Regal will contact us.
one day they technically have contacted
I know.
us.
Oh my God, they have. We've talked to Regal.
We've spoken. We've conversed.
Anyway, next week I will be out of town for work, so we will not be recording a new episode. So we will be back the week after that. So until then, we hope you have a lovely 2 weeks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on the ride home.